again, and I'm so happy this morning to welcome Stacy Chubb.
Chubb.
Chubb. Not the soft CH, the hard.
Right.
Okay. And she's with us from, as I mentioned, from Outpatient Rehabilitation, and she is a speech language pathologist.
That's right.
And Stacy, I'm sure you have some very good information for us this morning, and I would like you to share that with us, please.
Sure. A lot of people don't know what a speech language pathologist is. Sometimes we're called speech therapists or speech pathologists, and so it's a little bit of a misnomer, the actual title. People, when they hear that, they think, well, I don't have any problems with my speech, I don't need you, but we actually do much more than just deal with speech problems. A really simple way to think about it is that I tell people we work from the neck up. So we are trained in the anatomy and physiology of the head and neck. So that includes functions like speech, but also processing language, in other words, understanding what you hear, swallowing, people who have difficulty swallowing, either because of a stroke or a head injury or some kind of a neurological impairment. And then we also deal with people who have difficulty with memory and cognition, and then also voice, people who have difficulty projecting their voice. So there's a number of places you will find a speech and language pathologist, and one of them being here at Green Spring. We work both in the outpatient clinic over in Hunter's Crossing, and then we are also located in Garden Ridge in the rehab department over there. So,
well, pathology sort of has a different meaning even when you compare it with therapy.
Right,
and
I know.
So that's interesting.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Sometimes to make it more meaningful to people, I usually shorten it and I just say, I am your memory therapist for today, and that clicks with them. It just makes a lot more sense.
Therapy sounds like, okay, they're going to teach me how to do something.
Sure. And that's what we do. That's a good way to think about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how many people do you actually work with with that need?
We have a lot of people, right? I mean, I am one of 2 full-time speech pathologists here at Green Spring, and both of us carry a pretty consistent caseload. I mean, we see probably anywhere from 6 to 8 people a day, sometimes more than that. Yeah, and the majority of the people that I work with right now are people with cognitive impairment and difficulty with memory. So that's my focus right now.
Who decides when, for instance, when I would need that kind of help? How do I mean, does the doctor or?
That's a good question.
Can you just go there and say, I need help?
Kind of both. I mean, when you say a lot of times what happens is when people have some kind of an incident, maybe they have a fall or a stroke, obviously would be an indicator of a need for therapy. But it can also be something where you just start to notice changes in your function that are interfering with your daily life. You know, it's not just as simple as you lose your keys, because we all do that every once in a while, but it becomes a pattern, and you start to notice maybe more difficulty with finding words for things and difficulty communicating with people. When it begins to be a pattern and it begins to interfere in your life, or maybe family and friends are saying something to you, you know, I noticed that you seem to be a little bit more off these days. That is when you or your family members can initiate a conversation with your physician to say, this is what I'm noticing, and then the process is that they would then refer you or write an order to come and see us for an evaluation.
Like a prescription.
like prescription, that's exactly right.
And if people are hooked into Medicare, they probably, or in some kind of health insurance, it's covered.
It's covered, right. Medicare will cover it as long as it is a skilled need. They cover what we call skilled therapies. So we do carry Medicare and other insurances as well.
Well, before we started, you told me you had some other thing you might like to talk about in November.
Yeah, yeah. Well, kind of on the lines of what I was talking about with the memory, we do have coming up in November a national. We are participating in National Memory Awareness Month, and the screening. We will be offering screenings, free screenings, the first week of November. And so that is part of the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. They do this throughout the country. They provide free screenings for anyone that's interested. So we are a place that provides that. And so for that week, I believe it's the week of the 2nd through the 4th, you can come down to our outpatient location in Hunter's Crossing. And it'll be in the afternoon, but it'll be for that whole week where you can sign up for having your memory screened. And then we also have on November 4th in Hunter's Crossing a memory support fair. So that's something people can just come and go and see what we have to offer for that, different activities and information booths all about memory and cognition.
Well, I think sometimes when people hear the word Alzheimer's related to anything, it sort of scares them off. So I know it's. I remember when I was first here, I heard a person present a talk about different kinds of dementia, and she opened her remarks by saying, there are 17 different kinds of dementia, and Alzheimer's is only one of them. So that was interesting to me, and I thought, you know, it's a and now you hear so much about it because there's been so much research, and they're learning more and more about how the brain works. So that's helpful in some ways, but here in a community like this, we're all very aware of how our brain works or doesn't work.
There was an article recently on Glenn Campbell and his struggles with Alzheimer's, and I like what he has done in that he's trying to, in coming public, remove the stigma of that. And the reason I say that is a lot of people do function quite well in life with a technical diagnosis of dementia. They can still live life very fully and have a good quality of life, and that's part of what, as speech language pathologists, we do is figure out what strategies will work for them given that diagnosis. There are many things we can do in the therapy process that can help both train that person and their family or their caregivers to provide an environment where they can still function as independently as possible. Certainly there's no, you know, the unfortunate part is it is a progressive disease, and so there's no cure, but there's still ways you can live within that and function in a very satisfying way and have a good quality of life. So, yeah.
Well, it's similar to what cancer used to be. People, you know, if you didn't even want to say someone had cancer because people just didn't want to talk about it basically. And I think the same thing has happened with that. And I know initially, I remember hearing that there's no way you can diagnose Alzheimer's until after a person has died and they can look at your brain. Well, now they can look at your brain with MRIs and PET scans and things and find out what's happening. So it's helpful, and I know there are therapies, but when we think of a speech therapist, people don't necessarily relate that to memory issues or any of that. So
absolutely. So that's a good one reason why I'm glad I'm on here, so that people know that that's a service we offer here at Green Spring. Is as part of the therapy department, the speech and language pathologists specialize in that particular area. So, you know, you have your physical therapist, your occupational therapist. I'll just kind of take care of the rest.
Well, we're running out of time already. Time goes so quickly, but I know how important that part of our lives is, and we're so grateful to have that service available here at Green Spring
Yeah.
when we need it.
Yeah.
And so do you have any parting words for us that you would like to share?
I would say just be looking for information on that first week of November for the memory screening, and we will put the information up about how to sign up for that, but you will need to put a phone call into the Hunters Crossing office to sign up for it. But please come by, you know, if you feel like you just want to see how things are going and just check it out, or if you're curious, there's you know, no harm in just coming by and getting it screened and see how things are going. We'd love to see you. So.